Kita mulakan majlis. Marilah kita bersama-sama mulakan dengan bacaan Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Teknologis Dr. Wahid bin Razali, Naib Chancellor Universiti Tun Hussein On Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Johan Jaafar, Profesor Ejang dan Sastrawan UTHM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Ismail bin Abdul Rahman, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademik dan Antarabangsa UTHM. Yang berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Khairul Azman bin Muhammad Suhaimi, maafkan saya, Dekan Pusat Pengajian Umum dan Kurikulum. Yang berusaha Puan Zahara binti Abdul Samad, Ketua Pustakawan Perpustakaan Tunku Tun Aminah. Pegawai-pegawai kanan universiti, tuan-tuan, puan-puan yang dirahmati Allah. Alhamdulillah, kita berkumpul dalam keadaan sejahtera pada pagi ini untuk mendengar sedikit perkongsian pengalaman daripada panel jemputan kita yang berhormat Tan Sri Johan Jaafar, Profesor Ejang dan Sastrawan UTHM. Terlebih dahulu, sebelum program diteruskan, dijemput yang berhormat Profesor Dr. yang berbahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Teknologis Wahid bin Razali, Naib Chancellor Universiti Tun Hussein On Malaysia, untuk menyampaikan ucapan alu-aluan. Dengan segala hormatnya dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang bahagia, yang saya hormati Tan Sri Johan Jaafar, iaitu sebagai kita punya Ejang Profesor dan juga Sastrawan Negara untuk UTHM. Dan ingin saya ulangi bahawa kita memilih Tan Sri Johar dulu, kita cadangkan kepada Menteri sebab he is all-rounder. Jadi itu yang and we feel that we lack the liberal side of kita punya in the university, iaitu technologists and engineers, juruterbang engineers, that they need something, some vitamins, some foods, so that kita punya diet tu looks stable dan looks, kita kata, balance. Jadi saya harapkan sebab tu setiap kali Tan Sri Johan kita pastikan supaya pendengaran itu dapat dicapai bukan sahaja di dalam bilik ini tetapi juga melalui Facebook. Dan saya harapkan bahawa sharing for later on itu amat penting. Oleh kerana ini amat bermakna kepada UTHM, so elok makna dia kita bagi masa yang lebih kepada yang bagi Tan Sri untuk terus menerangkan tentang saya ingat ni ada Sungai Balang Index. So this is something keep us asking what is it. So saya harapkan ini sesuatu yang mungkin teknik Tan Sri untuk storytelling, saya tak tahu lah. So these are the thing that we would like untuk semua, dan hari ini ada dekan-dekan untuk melihat dan bagaimana kita boleh roll down ilmu ataupun pandangan-pandangan Tan Sri seterusnya kepada staf-staf kita yang lain di UTHM. Dan saya yakin selepas ini kita mohon juga Tan Sri untuk berjumpa dengan students lah terutamanya, so they get the feel of what it is to be a well-rounded person, okay, di dalam kehidupan kita. Yeah. We would like to start early with the students. Kalau dah keras macam bambu susah, Tan Sri, baru kita nak belajar pasal arts, pasal liberal studies and so on. So terima kasih. Dan saya ucapkan terima kasih juga kepada rakan Tan Sri yang sudi bersama-sama. Ini satu rakan di UM dulu, rakan Tan Sri, dan saya ucapkan inilah UTHM, dan saya harapkan promotlah UTHM di mana saja tuan berada, insya-Allah. Kalau suka, kalau tak suka tak apa, insya-Allah. So but we would like to partner with everybody. Okay, itu saja Tan Sri. Okay, sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Majlis mengucapkan terima kasih kepada yang berbahagia Naib Chancellor atas ucapan sebentar tadi. Tuan-tuan, puan-puan yang dirahmati Allah, tanpa membuang masa dijemput Yang Berhormat Tan Sri Johan Jaafar selaku panel jemputan untuk memulakan sesi perkongsian. Untuk rekod tuan-tuan, puan-puan, para hadirin, sesi ini akan berlangsung secara santai. Jadi sebagaimana mengulang balik hasrat Datuk NC, perlukan sedikit respon dan two-way communication. Dengan ini majlis mempersilakan Tan Sri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Wahid Razali, Naib Chancellor Universiti Tun Hussein On Malaysia, yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Ismail Abdul Rahman, yang berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Khairul Azman bin Muhammad Suhaimidi, yang berusaha Puan Zahrah Abdul Samad, Ketua Pustakawan Perpustakaan Tuanku Tun Aminah, barisan dekan-dekan fakulti, ketua-ketua jabatan, pegawai-pegawai utama dan pegawai kanan Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia, sahabat saya, saudara Rosdi Siraj yang saya bawa untuk menemankan saya ke Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia. Dia tak pernah sampai kemari, ini kali pertama dia sampai. Ini kawan saya masa tahun 74 sehingga tahun 77 daripada Universiti Melaya. You can imagine 1974 to 1977. Some of you were not even born then. So there we were back in 1974. We came from, he was from Kampung Parit Ibrahim, Batu Pahat. I was from Sungai Balang. That is why we are going to talk about the Sungai Balang Index. It's really an honor to be here. I would like to thank everyone for your presence and especially the invitation by the university dan terutamanya yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Wahid, who happened to be a friend of my friend, of our friend. So it is a small world actually. So it is really an honor to be here, and it is always a great session that we normally have with Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia. So I have been an adjunct professor to at least 7 universities, 7 so far. Yeah? So I am currently only with Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia. Yang lain semua dah habis dah. For the last I think about 20 years I have been an adjunct professor at various universities. But you see, this is the most unique university that I've ever encountered or rather engaged myself with, because this is not the kind of university like Universiti Melaya, Universiti Kebangsaan, Universiti Sains, Universiti Utara dan sebagainya. Yeah? Because this is a special university, nest in a kampung, Parit Raja, a little known place before. So basically, it is quite unique. That is why I fall in love with the university lah. To put it simply. To prove my point, I have about 15,000 titles collection of my books. So I donated every single one of my book to Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia. So that speak volume of my eagerness or my enthusiasm to converse or to get involved, to engage with the university. What I'm going to do today is to talk about a very simple theoretical aspect. When someone was correcting or adjusting this microphone, this is what communication is all about. Communication is just like a microphone. It is adjustable. So the problem with most people is that when you have a microphone there, so they will do a lot of things to make sure that their voice would be heard. But you are dealing with a microphone. The microphone is adjustable. You don't have to bend. You don't have to move your body, just because the microphone is there. You adjust the microphone. That is the whole concept of communication, actually. It is adjustable. So what I'm going to show you today, or to discuss with you, or to engage you, is to go for a simple concept. And the interesting thing is, the organizer, probably Dr. Lutfam, dia tak masuk perkataan KISS tu. Dia kata keep it simple saja. In actual fact, there is another word that is missing. That is, apa kata orang tu, conspicuously missing. The word stupid. KISS tu maksudnya keep it simple, stupid. That is one of the totem poles of communication. To keep it as simple as you possibly can. Before I begin my presentation, I would like you to watch this interesting video, please. So the blind man put up a sign saying, "I'm blind, please help me." There are so many blind people on the sidewalk. So people just pass through, probably throw a shilling or something. But what the lady did was, she changed the words. She made sure that you capture the hearts, the soul, the mind, the feeling, the emotions of people passing by saying, "It is a beautiful morning, but I can't see it." And because of that, people been giving more to the blind man. It is as simple as that, about changing words. So what we are going to do today is actually to talk about changing words as far as communication is concerned. You see, I'm basically a wordsmith. It's not because I'm writing, because I'm a journalist, because I'm a writer, I'm a sastrawan, but because I was also the group editor of a newspaper. And I was the chairman, former chairman of Dewan Bahasa. And I was a former chairman of the only integrated media company in the country at that point of time. That is Media Prima. So I have to deal with people. I have to sell my product. It all depends on what I say, what I tell. You see, I'm a salesperson, just like any salesperson. I consider myself not as the chairman of Media Prima, not as the chairman of Dewan Bahasa, not as the chief editor of Utusan Melayu, but as a salesperson. Everyone is a salesperson. You are selling your product, you are selling your content, you are selling your ideas, you are selling your services. So the whole idea is language matters to me. Language matters to you. You see, I was the group editor of Utusan Melayu from 1992 to 1998. In 1998, I was famously fired by Tun Mahathir Mohamad. You all know the story. I was associated with Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, and because of that, they would want to have a utusan that is supportive of Dr. Mahathir at that point of time. So I was the casualty. In fact, the first casualty in 1998, on the 14th of July 1998, I got the axe. They have to clean up Utusan Melayu before they fire Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on the 2nd of September 1998. Yeah? So you can imagine the power of the press at that point of time. Masih tu belum ada social media lagi. Masih tu belum ada WhatsApp, belum ada Instagram, belum ada Facebook. Yeah? Those were the days when the newspaper, the print media reigned supreme. Television belum ada lagi masa itu. TV3 was hardly beginning to make its mark, basically. So newspaper was so powerful. So I was considered as too powerful. So that is one of the reasons why they have to fire me. Please put someone else to replace me, and then baru dia buang Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. That is the power of the media at that point of time. Then I'm talking about then, not now. Yeah? So you see, I will always talk about Sungai Balang Index. Sungai Balang actually is my kampung. This is Sungai Balang. Yeah? I grew up in this. I was born here. I grew up in this kampung. Basically, most of the people were Javanese of Javanese descent. Kabeh wong Jawa. Asale wong Sungai Balang ki sing akeh wong asale kampung jenenge Ploso Jenar di Kabupaten Ponorogo. Koncoku jenenge Mahbub, Tuginah, Katiem, Painah dan sebagainya. So basically I grew up in this kampung. Macam kawan saya Cik Rosdi, dia orang Jawa tapi dah tak boleh cakap Jawa dah. I have a feeling even the Vice Chancellor, of course he is a Javanese, born in Teluk Bali Megarang, but I'm not quite sure his command of Javanese. So saya selalu menggunakan apa yang saya sebutkan sebagai indeks Sungai Balang. This is actually Sungai Balang. This is the kampung that I grew up. And why the index? Why is that when I came into Utusan, one of the first thing I did was to make sure that there is such a thing as the Sungai Balang Index. You see, because I always believe in this. Newspaper readers transcend educational background, transcends class, social standing, race and religion. So the spectrum of readers, daripada Perdana Menteri sampailah kepada penuri getah, daripada scholars, orang yang membaca university lecturers dan sebagainya, sampailah ke housewife. Artinya, those who can read will read Utusan at that point of time. I'm talking about then. So that is why I always make sure that there is an index as a reference for my reporters, my editors. So this is what I believe, that we must be able to communicate to all. You come out in a newspaper, nobody reads your newspaper because either it is too tough for them to read, they don't understand what you are trying to say, and things like that. So irrespective of who they are or who they were, they should be able to read my newspaper. So the principle is very simple. Any words, any sentence, any phrase not understood by my kampung people, do not use. Probably some of you will be arguing, kita ni duk cakap pasal katalah engineering, medicine dan sebagainya. What about that? No, I'm not talking about that kind of specific discipline. I'm talking about readership of newspaper. Of course, at your level, at this university, when you give lecture, you don't have to use the Sungai Balang Index because there are terms, there are phrases that is being used. Basically, it is only attributed or it is meant for your discipline. It is not meant for the people of my kampung. But as far as newspaper is concerned, it is different. So this is the principle that I use. any words, any sentence, any phrase not understood by my kampung people, do not use. That is the principle that we use. So senang cakap, why should you be using words like ketidakmampuan when you have tidak mampu? Keterbukaan, keberhasilan, priority, pemerkasaan, lantunan. This is another tongue twister. Jaya Rawara. Have you heard of this? Ini Jaya Rawara ni, actually is Sarawak Malay word for apa nama ni, maksudnya ialah untuk pergi ke gelanggang, turun ke bawah. Maksudnya pergi apa nama ni, macam kita pergi roadshow lah. That's the word for it. Jaya Rawara. Any one of you, if you can pronounce that word, is good enough. Asimilasi, penanggungjawabkan, insaniah, keterhujaan. These are all words that means very little. So I told my editors, please never ever use such words. Ini kadang-kadang people tend to be bombastic. Tend to be bombastic, using all these words like inclusivity, kerelevanan. It doesn't make sense to me. In English, you don't need all this. You just take a look at the name of this department. This is actually an Indonesian department. Can you find a single Malay or Indonesian word except for dan? Pusat Vulkanologi dan Mitigasi Bencana Geologi, Department Energi dan Sumber Daya Mineral. Except for the word dan, none is Indonesian or Malay or Indonesian or Javanese or whatever. Semua foreign words. I'm worried that we are heading towards this way. Now, and never assume knowledge or awareness just because you think that you like to use the word transformasi. Ini the previous government, or rather the previous government loved to use this word transformasi. To most people, it doesn't make sense. So there was an instance, when I was praying, masa tu hari raya haji lah, and the imam was given a text. You know, the Johor imam, all the imam in Johor were given a state text. The text is all standardized like everywhere. But in most cases, like in my kampung, probably it comes about 2 weeks late. So the imam there, the imam was reading the khutbah. Kita bersyukur kerana pada hari ini terang benderang suasana di luar. Hujan lebat kat luar. Because he was reading the text, and the text is 2 weeks old. So there was a case when he has to read the word transformasi in Jawi. So when he comes to the word transformasi, tara, taramin, tarasim, tarasim, taramin, the word transformasi can be read. So you see how difficult it can be. Why use the word that people don't understand? That is the thing that I've been telling Datuk Sri Najib at that point of time. I said, don't use the word transformasi. Orang sebelah guna ubah je. Ubah. Change government. And they did change government. Because it was so simple. It's appealing to everyone. Ubah, transformasi. You ask my mother, if my mother is still alive, she wouldn't know what is transformasi. You ask my kampung people, apa ya transformasi? Jabang bayi amit-amit, aku orang faham. Jadi dia tak faham perkataan tu. So what's the point of using words that people don't understand? Please bear that in mind. Please, jangan salah faham. I'm saying all this. I'm referring to communication. I'm not referring to discipline in knowledge. I'm not talking about engineering terms or medicine terms in medicine. Bukan, but I'm talking about general when you talk about communication with others. So, and the other thing is, any sentence, this is another principle that I use, any sentence that is more than 15 words is a no-go. It's simply too long. Kan? Kita nak cerita kucing dengan anjing, penghabisnya jadi kucing tu lebih besar daripada anjing. Because you run out of subject, the understanding of subject and predicate. Words too lengthy, too long. Kan? People simply can't understand. And there is also, this is the whole idea about it. The whole concept is actually to keep it simple. The term or the word that we use is actually KISS, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That is the very basic principle. I told my people, new reporters, rookie reporters, they come to my office and say, do you understand this word? Keep it simple. And not just keep it simple, stupid. You know, or else you don't make everyone stupid. So the whole idea is, either than you make other people stupid, it's better that we correct our stupidity. Okay, let's look at William Shakespeare. He's supposed to be the world's greatest dramatist, the best writer ever writing in English language. Yeah? This is about 400 years ago. He have written some of the best plays, some of the best drama. Imagine, of all those plays, he only used 27,870 words. So senang cakap, his command, his vocabulary is only about 27,870 words. And yet, he is the greatest writer of all time, the best known dramatist of all time, the best writer ever writing in English. And his command of the language with only 27,870 words. You don't need to have 50,000 words like Shakespeare. Yeah, Shakespeare has only 27,870 words. And he can write so good. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible piece of dramas, plays, and of course, poetry that he wrote. You see? According to the complete works of Shakespeare, the total number of words that he used in all his 37 plays, drama yang dia pernah tulis, is 936,433 words. And only 27,000 different words. Ini campur semua sekali. All the words that he used. So this is a story that I always tell my people. Many years ago, back in the 60s when I went to school, I was the first boy from the school who went to an English school. The first boy in the kampung who went to an English school. Yeah? Masih itu. I wonder why my father, who was a rubber tapper in the morning and a barber in the afternoon, sent his son to an English school, whereas everyone in the kampung went to a Malay school. Yeah? I knew not a single word of English, probably three lah. Yes, no, thank you. 3 words of English. I went to the school. The name of the school is Peserian Primary English School. And the school is actually not a proper school. Kita pinjam daripada sekolah agama, siang sekolah, petang sekolah agama, pagi sekolah orang putih. So I went there. There were about 17 of us there. Yeah? And the teacher was someone from Yorkshire, England. He's one big guy. The look of his face, his name is Mr. Gunn. Nama pun Mr. Gunn. He lived up to his reputation. And the first thing he told us was that anyone who speak any other word other than any other language other than English, for every single word I'm going to fine 5 cents. Ladies and gentlemen, 1960, 5 cents is a lot of money. Not only that, I didn't bring any money. So kita bawa bekal, bontrot kata orang. Bawa bekal, masuk dalam bag pergi ke sekolah. So, I was mute for about 3 months. I dare not utter a single word. Because my understanding of language at that point of time was basically yes, no, and thank you. Other than that, I went back to the kampung. I spoke Javanese with my friends. Dekat rumah cakap Melayu. So you can imagine. This is the kind of thing that I was exposed to. And I was not supposed to say a word, any word other than those words other than in English. So I was mute for about 3 months. And if you want to go to the toilet, never use the word toilet. We use the word lavatory. So we have to say correctly, excuse me, teacher, may I go to the lavatory? I can never bring myself to utter those 7 words. And because of that, I will never go to the toilet during class time. So you imagine the kind. And what did we learn? We learned nursery rhyme. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. And to improve our English, we learned Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled paper. Peck of pickled paper was picked by Peter Piper. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled paper, where is the pickled paper that Peter Piper picked? So, you see, that is how we learn English. Dan masa itu pun kita belajar, other than nursery rhyme, we learn, or we were told to sing gospel songs. Lagu Christian tu. That's the only way to learn English masa itu. And for the record, nobody became a Christian. Please, for goodness sake. Because those were nice words that we learned. Tujuan dia bukan apa, kerana nak belajar bahasa Inggeris saja. So, you see, that is how difficult it was to learn English those days. Dekat kampung Sungai Balang, siapa yang boleh cakap orang putih? So balik saya pun ajarlah, Jack and Jill went up the hill. But kampung, budak-budak kampung tahulah. Dia punya slang tu ubah sikit lah. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Okay lah tu. It makes a lot of sense. That is how I learn English. Saya fikir orang Tanjung Teluk Paling Begarang pun lebih kurang begitu juga. So basically that is how we learn English, the difficult way. So you can imagine the vocabulary that Shakespeare was only about 27,000 words, and yet he is the greatest writer in English language. See, in 2009, Oxford English Dictionary registered the 1 million English word. So the total number of vocabulary that Shakespeare had 400 years ago was basically 35, or rather, the total number of words in Oxford English Dictionary, which is already 1 million words, is 35 times vocabulary, Shakespeare's vocabulary 400 years ago. 35 times. So you don't need to learn every single word in Oxford English Dictionary to be a good writer. You need only about 27 words. I will show you another example. This is Kamus Dewan. This is the most authoritative kamus in the country, published by Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka. It is now in the 7th edition. How many words do they have? There's only about 34,000 entry. Yang lain-lain tu tambahan lah, kata masukkan, campur sub-entry dan sebagainya. But the actual entry is only about 34,000 words, meaning there are only about 34,000 words in Malay. You know every word out of that 34,000, kira you dah jadi orang kamus lah. You are Mr. Kamus lah, Mr. Dictionary lah. You don't need that. We don't need 34,000. I've been writing in English. I think my vocab is much less than Shakespeare. It's okay. I can communicate with people. I don't have any problem communicating with people. So, but the problem is, the power is not with the words. The power is in the usage. That is always a problem that we are facing in the country today. Tengok, dulu, those days lah, zaman saya dulu, I don't know. Some of you mungkin tak ingat. When we talk about Bata, dia punya tagline dia, first to Bata, then to school. Ingat, masa itu kita pakai kasut Fung Kiong. Brother, kita pakai kasut Fung Kiong. Bata ni mahal, harganya RM3.99. Datuk Vice Chancellor ingat tak? Kasut Bata dia tak jual harga RM4. What is the price of a Bata shoe? $3.99. Tak sampai RM4. So we were proud telling people that I got a Bata shoes. What is the price of your Bata shoes? $3.99. You'll never mention RM4. Never mention RM4 because it is $3.99. It makes a lot of difference between $3.99 psychologically and RM4. Ini Elad hebat. Ni Elad ASB mula-mula dulu, you know. Dia punya tagline dia merah sangat lah mak ngah. People remember this. It is a very powerful words, very powerful advertisement. That is why ASB was so ASN masa tu ASN was so popular. When they launched that probably in the 80s, it was so popular because one of the things is because the advertisement. Merah sangatlah Mak Ngah. So sampai hari ni generasi saya lah, generasi muda-muda ni mungkin tak ingat lah. Generasi, that does not make me very old, please. Now, Nike has a very simple promotion. Just do it. Ini, of course, it has been translated into many improper things lah kan. Nak curi, just do it. Nak merompak duit rakyat, just do it. Nak buat apa pun, just do it. You know, I mean, to take the negative side of it. But this is one of the most remembered advertisement tagline ever. It is as powerful, for instance, just a bit of knowledge that you guys must remember. When Datuk Seri Najib lost his position, his fight back was very interesting. He came back with this idea, malu apa bosku. Okay lah, you know, forget about the malu apa. Bosku is almost catching up. I mean, it's like kata orang catching fire. Everyone is talking about bosku. If I talk to a friend, I send a message to a friend, I would always say, terima kasih bosku. You know. So you see, that is part of the fight back that has been done by Datuk Seri Najib. You know, probably you guys have your own views about what Datuk Najib did or whatever. He was a friend of mine. I have no question about that. But the thing is, the fight back, the concept that he brought forth in order to basically to position himself lah, you know, that he's been victimized or whatever, is apa malu bosku. What is that to be ashamed of? You know. So basically, people are saying, "Oh, what is there to be ashamed of when you steal a certain amount of money or whatever?" But from that perspective, it's not. He take it as a positive aspect of it. So he's saying, apa nak malu? No, orang attack ke, orang buat apa-apa, you know. And this is another very powerful image. Don't leave home without it. So this is American Express. Simple words. Ada tak perkataan yang susah? Keterbukaan, keterhujaan ada? None. Even in English, they don't use difficult words or complicating words. They use very simple words. Okay. This is another interesting example. I always use this. The branding of Pak Jokowi, the current president of Indonesia. So he came out with just two phrases, two words. Rapopo and blusukan. Rapopo come from the word ora opo-opo in Javanese. Tak ada apa-apa. Kerja kuat, ora opo-opo. Pak Jokowi, nampaknya bapak ini kerjanya kuat. Oh, ora opo-opo. Pak Jokowi, ini urusan yang sangat penting ini. Ora opo-opo. Pak Jokowi, ini masalah negara ini belum selesai. Ora opo-opo. Jadi dipendekkan jadi rapopo. Artinya dia boleh buat apa saja. Boleh jadi ke, boleh berjaya, that is another matter. But he used the word rapopo positively to mean that, you know, he will do anything in his means to make sure that things get done. So, konsep itu. Yang kedua ialah blusukan. Blusukan is another Javanese word. Senang cakap, turun ke padang. It is as simple as that. Blusuk, turun ke padang. Blusukan is the concept where the president will go down to the rakyat. Dia akan lalu sebab Jokowi is not staying in Jakarta. He's staying in Bogor. So he will commute every day from Jakarta to Bogor. It will take him, because of the police escort and everything, about 30 minutes from Jakarta to Bogor. You see? And along the way, he will make sure that he will stop at, katalah, tempat orang jual kung pisang, tempat orang jual macam-macam. Just to make sure that he is seen as the people's president. People's president. Maksudnya dia akan turun ke gelanggang. Dan kalau dia turun ke gelanggang, kan, unlike some of our people, kan, bila dia duduk, katalah dia pergi turun gelanggang dekat bandaraya dekat Kuala Lumpur lah, kan, Datuk Bandar duduk depan, Ketua Setiausaha, Menteri Wilayah Persekutuan duduk depan dia, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Wilayah Persekutuan duduk depan dia, pengarah penjaja duduk depan dia. Jadi mana rakyat nak duduk dengan dia? Unlike our friend, if Jokowi goes down, he will go down like any ordinary Indonesian. You look at his face. Dia tak ada nampak grandeur ke macam mana. Rupa Jawa biasa. It's as simple as that. That is how he's portray himself. Whether he is successful as a president is another matter. As far as the rakyat is concerned, Jokowi is almost like a demigod to them. Jokowi speaks their language. Jokowi is a person who goes down to them. Why? Because he is communicating in a way that most presidents can't do. The previous presidents can't do, can never do the things that Jokowi has been doing. Because Jokowi is young, he's agile, and most importantly, he associates himself with the people. So this is about communication. And look at all these people. This is, of course, the first one is, oh, sorry, alamak. The first one is, of course, Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor. Julius Caesar, you remember when there was there were people were conspiring to kill him, and a good friend of him by the name of Brutus was one of those who stabbed him. And what did he say? He said, "Et tu, brute, you too, brute." In politics, you know, bukan saja tikam dari depan, backstabbing banyak kan. And Abraham Lincoln, you remember the great phrase that he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. So these are some of the things that he said. Now I'm confused whether that was JFK. Anyway, and of course Mahatma Gandhi, a very good communicator. So he was the one who believed that there should not be any kind of violence in order to gain independence. So he started a different kind of revolution in India. Ronald Reagan is a third-class film star, but he is one of the best communicator ever among the president of the United States. Pasal dia cakap simple, and because of him, Soviet Union at that point of time crumbled. The Berlin Wall crumbled. Communism crumbled. Just because he was such a good communicator. And of course, Martin Luther King, he has only one phrase to say, "I have a dream," which is meant for his people, the blacks in America. I have a dream. And for that, people will remember him. And Nelson Mandela, this is another great statesman. You know, he talked about rainbow nation. So a colorful nation. You have the black, you have the Africans, you have the English in South Africa. And of course, Barack Obama, the first black president in the history of the United States. 40 years ago, even a woman was not allowed to sit in front of a bus. 40 years later, the first black became the president of the United States. You see? And Barack Obama listened to him. He's one of the best communicator. So, and this gentleman, Tun Mahathir Mohamad. Tun Mahathir, so one of the traits of Tun Mahathir, one of the best things as far as reporters like us, journalists like us, is that when you deal with him, you know that you will have a lead story tomorrow. Heading dah siap, semua dah siap. He speak in simple words. He crystallized complex concept into simple words. It's so simple that everyone can understand. Siapa tak faham Dr. Mahathir, something is terribly wrong with him lah. So kita reporter dulu, when we listen to Tun Musa Hitam, we were awed. Dia punya oratory skill luar biasa. The words that he used, very powerful. You come back, you scratch your head. How are you going to start your news tomorrow? Berita tak tahu nak buat macam mana. Because he was so powerful. So he was truly orator lah. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim begitu juga. Kita dengar, kagum kita. I should know better lah. I've been a friend of him since my university days kan. Bukan main. Kita dengar hebat. Balik budak-budak gaul kepala. Boss, I don't know how to intro lah boss. Where did you go? Datuk Seri Anwar punya press conference. Jangan cakap dengan dia. Ini cerita je lah. So, apa nama ni? So I kata, what's wrong? Dia kata, I was like I was awed by his speech. He was truly a great speaker. But the problem was, I don't know how to intro lah, boss. Can you help me, boss? Tapi kalau Tun Mahathir is a different person altogether. You go to his press conference, you ask one question, he answer one question. I've interviewed almost every single politician in the country. I've interviewed Tun Mahathir in 1996 on the 15th year. It was his 15th year as the Prime Minister of the country. I just interviewed him after he won the election in 2018. So you can imagine, when I interviewed him, I knew that if I asked him, he will answer in short sentences, and I know where he will stop. So this is a story lah. Ini kita cerita lah just for the sake of argument, because we are talking about communication. I interviewed Pak Lah, our former Prime Minister, Tun Abdullah Badawi. He's a nice fellow. I like him so much. He's so pious. He's a nice guy, you know. So I interviewed him. So before I interviewed him, I said, Pak Lah, there are 7 topics that we will discuss. Boleh Johan, tak payah kita bincang lah. Nanti saya jawab. You tanya, saya jawab. I asked the first question. He answered all my 7 questions. I was like, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? I can't stop him. He's the Prime Minister. So macam mana saya nak potong dia? Kalau Tun Mahathir kita tanya dia, Datuk Seri, apa pandangan Datuk Seri tentang keadaan politik hari ini? Dia kata saya punya pendapat ini politik begini, and then he will stop after the 5th or the 6th sentence. I know. I get the message. Then I go in. I will ask another question. But not Pak Lah. Pak Lah, masalah kita sekarang ialah kerana ekonomi kita tidak menentu. Apa pandangan Pak Lah? All the 7 points that I've given to him, he answered all the 7. So you can imagine the next 45 minutes, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do for the next 45 minutes that is meant for me? Dia 1 hour, 15 minit dia dah jawab semua 7 jawapan soalan saya. So, these are problems. But, of course, I give you a few examples lah, just to be on the safe side. Communication is everything. Now, government struggling to retain trust of citizens simply because government normally fail to communicate with the people. Government of the day, selalunya problem ni akan berlaku. See, the worry is that great words, simple ones can accomplish great things. Not big words, bombastic words, no. And the most important thing, it is not so much what you say. It is what people hear. Kita duk cakap, I give you a few example later. Apa yang kita cakap ke orang, it is not so much what we tell them, but what they hear. Because hearing is one thing, talking is another thing. So kita kalau nak communicate, you ask 7 people, I will tell you a story, and then I will tell the same short story to 7 people. You ask them back and ask them, what is the story that been told by Johan? You will get 7 different interpretation of the same story. This gentleman, Mr. GST, everyone remembers him. He's a Johorian. Bila cakap pasal GST, semua orang ingat dia. Dia kata harga barang tak naik kerana GST. Dia memang Mr. GST. Everybody is talking about GST, but more importantly, he's the promoter of GST at that point of time. You see? This is your former Minister of Education. He's a nice bloke, very interesting. So he was with my Bicara Minda. I interviewed him for almost like 1 hour, and then there was another question and answer. He answered almost every question, and he was brilliant. This gentleman is one of those yang I believe is a good communicator as well. Saya tanya dia soalan, dia jawab. Dia pula ada question and answer dan sebagainya. And at the end of my question and answers with him, questioning, I asked him about something. I asked him, Yang Berhormat, apa agaknya, selain daripada hal-hal besar lah, yang Berhormat fikir perlu dilakukan pada waktu yang terdekat. So, he paused for a while, and then he said, saya nak suruh pelajar-pelajar pakai kasut hitam. Everyone in the hall was applauding. There was a big applause. You tahulah, if you are parents, anak-anak pergi sekolah pakai kasut putih, problem. Tiap-tiap hari nak kena kapur sepatu. Kan? Sekarang ni pun, private school semua pakai kasut hitam. International school pakai kasut hitam. Everywhere in the world, people go to school in black shoes. Only Malaysia, people go to school in white shoes. In Indonesia, everyone go to school in black shoes. So what is the big deal? So dia kata, saya akan suruh ibu bapa pakai anak-anak pakai kasut hitam. That was what he said. It was not even answering to my full question. He was just mentioning that. And tomorrow this came up. And he was vilified because of this. People were saying, tak ada keutamaan lain ke? Menteri Pelajaran pergi duk cakap pasal kasut hitam. What is the problem with this Menteri Pelajaran? And the whole debate about Mazli was about the kasut hitam. I have a lot of sympathy for him. Just because of the kasut hitam. He meant well. Saya sokong dia. Walaupun saya tak ada anak yang masih pergi sekolah pakai kasut putih lagi. I'm sure many of you have your children going to school in white shoes. And white shoes can be problematic. It is as simple as that. Kasut hitam, selamat kita sikit kan. Taklah kotor sangat pasal memang dah hitam. Kan? Tak adalah masalahnya sangat. But kasut putih is a problem. And the editorial dalam Star, dalam surat khabar kata, what is the problem with the Minister of Education? Of all the things, he spoke for 2 hours and he was talking about academic excellence, he was talking about education, the future of education, online education, he was talking about the philosophy of education, he was talking about the need to bring the university to a higher level, he was talking about the need for teachers to be, kata orang ni, more dedicated, semua segala benda, for 2 full hours. But none of that came out in the newspaper. But of course, pakai kasut hitam bermula 2019 became the big issue. So, the moral of the story, this gentleman, he came out in my program as well, Pak Wan. Ini masa zaman Pakatan Harapan lah. So, he came out on my program. So, I asked him a lot of questions. And there was a mention, for the first time ever, he mentioned about the possibility of innovation in the motorcar industry. So he mentioned something about kereta terbang, the possibility of working towards R&D in kereta terbang. And you know what happened? Tomorrow, everyone was talking about kereta terbang. That create a lot of attention. Sampai hari ni, people demonize him. People were saying, ini menteri khayal. Ni Menteri Majenen cakap pasal kereta terbang. See? So, the moral of the story is, sometimes ministers ni, kan, they are not quite careful with what they say. They are quite, nak kata reckless tak reckless lah. Tapi unless you have a support system, whenever you mention anything as either interesting or as outrageous ke, as kereta terbang, don't mention it unnecessarily. So, see, the media can pick and choose. Dia boleh pilih, suka hati dia. Mana yang dia nak berikan keutamaan. You can talk about thousands and thousands of things, but if they highlight on one thing, that's about it. The COVID-19 issue. This is about communication. So, one of the first thing that I wrote, that was in February this year, was that I said, we simply never learn. There's a lot of confusion when the pandemic hit Malaysia, starting to hit Malaysia, there was a lot of discussion. So people were getting panicky, people were saying that pegang microphone pun kalau selepas technician tadi pegang telefon, saya pegang telefon, there is a possibility that might be affected. Pergi ATM, we might get affected, all kind of things. So everyone was so scared, and there's all kind of rumors. Oh, PJ, sekarang orang semua dah kena. Saya balik daripada Pagoh, Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia Pagoh. There was a case of someone collapse ke apa benda dekat Pagoh, and then immediately, I got a lot of messages saying, "Hey, were you in Pago just now? Why? Oh, somebody kena lah in Pago." Yeah, so you can imagine the kind of rumors that have been spreading. So we were not able to contain this. And you remember when MH370 happened, there's a lot of confusion. The families were confused. Everyone was confused until Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein came out and became the spokesperson for the tragedy. So, you see, this is what I wrote. In this coronavirus outbreak, we are not just dealing with real issue, but also perceptions and rumors. And more importantly, to allay fear due to misinformation or lack of information. With the initial state, sometime in March and April, things were really rowdy. There's a lot of confusion as far as the virus is concerned. Now, what the government did was, they put this gentleman, Datuk Seri Sabri, to appear every day on television, in the news, explaining or telling people what the government have done. And because of that, dah tak ada dah, fake news dah tak ada. You see? And of course, this gentleman, everyone is talking about him, this Tan Sri Nur Hisham. So basically he came out at about 5 every evening and telling us, oh, this is a new cluster, ni cluster itu, cluster ini, cluster Srivaganga, Sivaganga, whatever, names that we are, and then another cluster. So they have been given us all the information that we need. And because of that, fake news cannot survive. There's no fake news. Of course, few lah, but basically fake news are being demonized simply because these people were able to communicate. And you see, and we were able to talk about numbers and statistics now. Not many people like numbers and statistics, tapi oleh kerana Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri dia kata kita telah menahan 14,232 buah kenderaan. Betul ke? Tapi tak kira lah, I mean, these are figures that is interesting. Kita telah 420 orang telah ditahan kerana melanggar PKP, kata dia. So suddenly statistics become important to us, and every day we are watching the news just to know how many new cases. Yesterday 58, the day previously is 42, katakan, and then previously there was only 5 dan sebagainya. So we were waiting, and at one point, to tell you the truth, this is the truth, at one point, setiap kali Tan Sri Nur Hisham appear on television, it affected the rating of the Women's Belt, the drama that was shown for women at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Begitu sekali rating dia punya tinggi at one point lah, but kita ni tahulah lepas ni orang dah tengok balik lah, suami ustaz lah, dan sebagainya. So this is where it is important to communicate effectively. Okay, I want to give you an example. This is another interview that I have with Datuk Seri Azman. I asked him about Felda. Masa itu dia baru jadi Perdana Menteri, and Felda was an issue that was raised by Pakatan Harapan. I asked him, what are you going to do about Felda? Because there's a lot of stories about Felda, misuse of fund lah, misappropriation here and there. There is an issue of integrity dan sebagainya. And this is the press conference that he made 3 months after that. Okay, between the 12th October and 2018, when I interviewed him, I asked him about Felda, and April 2019, when the government came out with the white paper on Felda. Berapa lama tu? Di antara Oktober sampai April. We are talking about 6 months. 6 long months. Dia kata, we are going to do something, we are coming out with a white paper. For that 6 months, a lot of things happened. And they are blaming Pakatan Harapan. Terbukti Pakatan Harapan fitnah isu kes Felda. They have ample time to come up with its stories attacking the Pakatan Harapan government at that point of time, because between the statement made by Azman in October of 2018 and the white paper that came out in April 2019, you can imagine, for 6 months they have a field day attacking the government and attacking Felda. So this is what crisis is all about. Now, the tabung haji issue. Ini pun satu lagi, another contentious issue di antara Mujahid dengan Aziz. So they were talking about this dalam parlimen, di mana-mana people were saying there's a lot of accusation and counter accusation, macam-macam lah. So what we did was, saya panggil dia berdua lah dalam program Berani Semuka. So dia duduk cakap, saya bagi dia 3 minit seorang, 3 minit seorang, 4 minit seorang, 4 minit seorang. Same question saya tanya dia. So basically, just to be fair, it's like a presidential debate. I don't want a situation whereby saya bagi Aziz bercakap, lepas tu saya bagi Mujahid bercakap, lama-lama dia bertengkar sama dia. Not on my program. So for Semuka, I give a strict time. 3 minit, 3 minit. 4 minit, 4 minit. So saya je boleh kontrol dua orang lah. Dia speaker Dewan Negara, Dewan Rakyat pun tak boleh. So basically that's how it is. So of course people are making their own assessment lah. Who won the debate? To me, it is not about winning the debate. It is about communicating and in the proper way. So this gentleman is one of the youngest prime ministers in the world. Justin Trudeau is the prime minister of Canada. When he was a student, he paint himself black. So dia panggil dia just for the fun of it lah. But of course now it is not a politically correct thing to do. When this thing came out, immediately he apologized. Immediately he apologized. But some of our people, some of our minister or deputy minister floating PKP or MCO, susah sangat nak apologize. After actions have been taken, dah kena fine, barulah cerita nak minta maaf. There was another case when a student was supposed to be climbing up the tree to get better access to internet. And the deputy minister was blaming her or claiming that she is actually just doing it for the sake of publicity dan sebagainya. And it took time for them to apologize. So basically, these are some of the things. Kita ni budaya nak minta maaf ni susah sikit. Saya tak tahulah, kita nampaknya selalu minta maaf. Raya minta maaf, bulan puasa minta maaf, Muharram minta maaf. Tapi bila sampai perkara macam ni, it is so difficult for us even to apologize. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. See, pelajar masak Maggi dalam beldi, terima kecaman, di label pengotor. You see? So, this is basically a mini crisis at University Tun Hussein, Malaysia lah. A mini crisis. I was following this, I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have a social media account except for WhatsApp. But people were telling me there's a lot of things going on. And you know, the story is, yang agak saya terasa sikit tu bukan kenapa. The debate, the Berani Semuka between Aziz and Mujahid, captures about 1 million viewers on Facebook. This one, I think currently sampai sekarang ni, it has already captured more than 1.2 million viewers on Facebook. 1.2 million viewers on Facebook. Kau bayangkan, tak terhina ke moderator Semuka banding dengan budak Universiti Tun Hussein on Malaysia di Paguh. So you can imagine. You see, what do you do with cases like this? What do you do with cases like this? People ask me. Recently, I was giving a talk at some place. So, they were asking me. Dia kata, if you are the vice chancellor, sorry, Datuk, ini bukan contoh Ini bukan contoh. I'm just giving you an example. As a communicator, not as a vice chancellor, I know you have a lot in your mind and you basically, something that has been put on your shoulder, that is understandable. But the most important thing is, they ask me, they kata, what will you do if this happen to you? I kata, I will take advantage of this. I will not penalize the student. I will go to the student. I will take priok ke whatever, and it's just make it fun, make it more interesting. Bawa pergi kat budak-budak ni, okay, sekarang ni Vice Chancellor sedekah kau 1 periuk lah, untuk kau masak Maggi, daripada dia masak dalam baldi. Bukan kenapa dia baru masuk dia baru daftar diri. Agaknya memang betul dia tak ada periuk ke apa ke. Jadi dia masak air panas, dia masuk ke dalam Maggi dalam beldi, dia tuang lah. There is nothing wrong with that. I mean, technically, a lot of students did that. But the only thing is, it became viral. But of course, people start accusing these guys. Dia kata ini orang Kelantan, pengotor lah macam-macam. Dia masuk cerita Kelantan. Mas Rasdi ni kahwin orang Kelantan. Jadi macam-macam cerita lah. But to be fair, I would take advantage of this. This is an interesting story. University Tun Hussein Malaysia seldom get this kind of publicity in the social media. This is a golden opportunity for me lah. For me, it's a golden opportunity. Now, you look at another case. This is the issue that involved University Kebangsaan Malaysia. There was a convicted pedophile. So he was caught with thousands of images of child pornography in his laptops, in his computer. And he was incarcerated. He was imprisoned in United Kingdom by the United Kingdom police. And then he came back, of course. And he's a brilliant student, actually. So what he did was he registered to be a PhD student di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. But of course, some NGOs heard about it and came out with a lot of statements saying, how could UKM allow this thing to happen? How could UKM admit a pedophile dan sebagainya? So from my perspective, I think to be fair to him, I'm quite sure he has repented. That was a mistake that he made. He was still a young man. So basically, you cannot penalize him for life just because of what he did. I mean, the very fact that he kept or he watched child pornography is totally unacceptable to me. I mean, that is disgusting lah. But the fact that he has to live, he's still young, and he's clever. So why don't a university like UKM give a chance to him? So UKM have to answer. So UKM answered in such a way that I think at least for now, the story has. But of course, whenever people talk about pedophile in the country, this issue will crop up. So you have to live with it lah. So basically, these are some of the things that I always insist that don't let crisis go to waste. Jangan bazirkan crisis. Crisis sometimes it is good for us. It's a testing ground for us. So those were the days. You remember ini orang datang kampung Sungai Balang, dia bawa ini jabatan penerangan, dan sekarang this is what happened. And of course now social media is redefining everything. Dulu pakai typewriter, this is basically a new modern newsroom. So as I've shown you before, I bring news to you. I was in Afghanistan, so in Afghan, a non-Afghan, compared to the Afghan, by just one thing, non-Afghan wear glasses. So that was me back in Jalalabad back in 1989. I was with the Afghan, as I told you before. They woke me up at about 2 in the morning and said, let's shoot some Russian. Luckily I didn't. So I was there for about a month, and this is about doing it real time. Whatever happened, I was on the way here. There was an accident on the road, just right in front of our car. Just a car skidded, and we are not quite sure what happened to the driver. Jadi it's real time. Whatever happened outside, then someone will take a picture and become viral. Real time. And Malaysia now tops dari segi mobile social media platform. Top 5 in terms of the number of users. And according to the chief statistician, Datuk Seri Dr. Uzir Mahidin, this is what happened. So the number of this part of the digitalization of Malaysia, the number of people who are involved in Facebook dan sebagainya. So the penetration is almost like 90%. And of course, it is important for University Tun Hussein to strengthen your social media outfit. and your role in all this supervising, monitoring, and content creation, media relation, and crisis management. But the most important thing is soundbite. It is very important for not only for ministers but for vice chancellors to have the right soundbite when you deal with the reporters. Yeah? These are soundbite, basically memorable phrases lah, to put it simply. Contoh dia macam ni lah. One of the things that Colin Powell during the Aceh tsunami. So he said, I fought wars, seen many natural disasters, but I have never seen anything like the devastation that has hit Aceh. Ini Colin Powell kata. And Tun Mahathir pernah kata, today the Jews rule the world by proxy. And this is the kind of sound bites that people will pick up. So, and marilah bekerja dengan saya, bukan untuk saya, kata Tun Daulah Badawi. And Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim kata, though no apology, I forgive Dr. Mahathir. So, these are sound bites that people will always remember. Ini menariknya Mak Sabu ni. So he said Al-Quran diturunkan di Mekah, dibaca di Malaysia, dipraktikkan di Jepun. Bukanlah kita kagum sangat dengan Mak Sabu. But interesting what he said. I believe that this is one of those things that people will always remember. So eventually, as what is important is for any institution, even universities of today, the most important thing is to sell the product. So it is like Beckham. I always use the example of Beckham. Why Beckham? Beckham is not the best footballer in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rusdi. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a big fan of football. I seldom watch football. I'm basically a rugby enthusiast. I'm crazy over rugby, but not football. I've not watched a full match in the last 40 years. Orang cakap Man U lah, Liverpool ke apa, minta maaf lah. So I don't watch football. But you see, one thing about Beckham is that he was with Manchester United. But when he left, most people, of course, he left as a rich person. A footballer in the English Premier League is paid at least £1.5 million a week. A week. So you can imagine berapa jumlah yang dia dapat. So these are very rich people. But most people, after they left the football field, they are largely ignored. Zidane lah, all these great names, people don't always remember them anymore, but not Beckham. It's not because she's married to Posh Beckham or Spice Posh, not just because of that, but because he's Beckham. He branded like Beckham. So he is still popular now. In fact, more popular now after he left the football field, or rather he left his profession, because he brand himself like Beckham. And one of the topics that I want to discuss with University Tun Hussein Malaysia is about brand it like Beckham. In fact, this is the name of the book, Brand It Like Beckham, because dia jadi duta. In fact, representing UK or England in various endeavors dan sebagainya, simply because he's Beckham. So you brand it like Beckham. The problem with Malaysian is that kita ni tak pandai brand diri kita. Sebab itu kalau kat United Nations tu yang dipanggil pakar tu datang daripada Nigeria, daripada mana-mana negara, India, daripada Pakistan, because all these people, they are good at branding themselves. They're selling themselves. We are competing with people. Graduate daripada University Tun Hussein Malaysia, they are good. But are they able to brand themselves? As I've always discuss this matter with UKM, because I'm there as part of the program they call CEO at faculty. So one of the things that I ask UKM management is that UKM has been around since the 70s. I would like to ask you guys, how many chairmen of public listed company, how many CEO of public listed company, how many COO, chief operating officer, how many chief financial officers in public listed companies are from UKM? Zero. None. Tak ada seorang pun. You see? So I told them, in fact, UKM started the management, the MBA, Masters of Business Administration, earlier than most university, earlier than UM, earlier than USM, earlier than most university. They started, I think, early 80s. And yet, sampai hari ini, the last time I checked, no graduate from UKM has become the chairman of a public listed company, CEO of public listed company, and CFO or Chief Financial Officer of any public listed company. Of late, there was an exception. The person is Wong Chun Wai. He was the former editor of the Star. Dia chief editor of the Star, bukan managing director of the Star. Jadi itu ada perbezaannya. So I told them, I said, relook into the branding side of your student, the selling bit. Bukan kenapa, it's not that UKM students are not good. They are good. Some of them have become good politician and bad politician as well, and some of them has excelled in all kind of things. They have become good doctors, engineers, whatever. You see, but the only thing is that as far as their positioning, in public listed companies, not one from UKM has ever been in the position of chairman, MD, or CFO of public listed company. Probably because the failure is in the branding. That is why it is important for universities like University Technology Malaysia, University Tun Hussein Malaysia, to start reminding the student, to position the student about branding themselves, the selling bit. I think that is always the problem. So saya selalu, kalau when I was at utusan ada Dewan Bahasa ataupun di Media Prima, orang yang datang interview untuk dapat kerja dan sebagainya. So I don't interview them. I don't do the firing, but I don't do the hiring, but I do the firing. Basically, saya tak campur lah. Tapi I always make it a point to listen to some of the conversation dalam interview dan sebagainya. And more often than not, my belief is that students from university, especially Malay students, have always a problem in their command of language as far as English is concerned, and the self-confidence is rather low. Normally, the self-confidence of public university is a lot lower than those who graduate from private university. I tak tahu kenapa. I don't know. People of my generation, kita ganas semua. But probably there is something. Probably we have not instilled the right attitude towards promoting themselves. Kita selalu percaya kita merendah diri lah, tak apa. But in today's world, you cannot do that. So basically, this is about positioning oneself. So I would like to end my talk today by saying that it is equally important for us to excel in education. And at the same time, there must be the ability to communicate effectively. Kalau kita gagal to communicate, that will be a big problem later. Because eventually, those who have the opportunity to be successful, especially in the private sector, are those who are able to communicate effectively. Bukan saja itu, tetapi kita kalau misal kata nak jadi guru pun, you have to communicate with your student. Kita nak jadi apa pun, you have to communicate with student. You are teaching at the university, you have to communicate with the people, your student. If you are a politician, you have to communicate with your people. So basically, these are some of the issues. So I hope my discussion this morning will be beneficial to you. So I would like to thank again the university for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. And always remember this.
Terima kasih atas perkongsian yang diberikan oleh Tan Sri. So ini adalah pusingan yang pertama. So selepas ini mungkin saya percaya yang bahagia Datuk, Profesor-Profesor, Doktor-Doktor mungkin dan seharusnya ada soalan-soalan sulit yang hendak diberikan. So kita open. Boleh Tan Sri? Okey, terima kasih banyak. So saya open to the floor. So boleh kita teruskan untuk sesi yang kedua.
Assalamualaikum Tan Sri. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri atas ceramah yang diberikan tadi. Soalan saya Tan Sri, komunikasi yang berkesan seharusnya dan wajibnya selepas itu datang dengan pembuatan keputusan yang berkesan. Proses pembuatan keputusan itulah yang kadang-kadang saya secara peribadi agak kaget, agak risau sama ada pembuatan keputusan saya ini betul ataupun salah. Kalau betul, legalah kita. Kalau salah tu sentiasa bermain di fikiran kita. Dan kalau salah itu akan datang dengan kesan-kesannya pula. Itu mendatangkan lagi ketakutan-ketakutan saya, terutamanya pemimpin generasi baru lah. Dan akhirnya saya cuba mengelak untuk buat keputusan untuk jalan selamat. Yalah, nampak macam negatif lah perumpamaan saya, tapi itu yang berlaku dalam diri lah kan. Jadi berdasarkan pengalaman Tan Sri sendiri, ada tak keputusan-keputusan yang Tan Sri pernah buat, lepas tu silap, dan bagaimana kita nak selesaikan masalah tu, counter back balik tu? Dengan kita boleh tidur malam seperti biasa, macam tak ada apa-apa kisah dan sebagainya. Gitulah. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Itu soalan yang cukup mengerikan. See, what has happened is that we have to make decision. That's why we are in the position where we are today. So at our level, whether you are a senior lecturer or head of a faculty or even head of the library, for instance, or not to mention being a vice chancellor of a university, we have to make decision. Decision have to make. And there are times when you have ample time to make decision. There are times when you have to make decision rather promptly. And this is where the dilemma is. And I always remember this, you see. So the principle that I always tell those people who are involved with the civil service, for instance, I'm one of the lecturers at Intan. So I normally give lecture about communicating effectively the Intan. And one of the things that I told them is that you guys are the frontliners in the sense that you are there to make your bosses look good. Maksudnya menteri look good. You see, so if you are the KSU or the TKSU or whoever, the most important thing is that whatever statements that you make, whatever policies that you want to implement, basically is to make sure that the ministers look good or the ministry look good. When the ministry look good, of course the minister will look good, and they have to make decision. Ministers come and go, they will stay. The KSU will be there. But the ministers will come and go. Tengoklah dalam 4 tahun, 3 tahun kebelakangan ni dah ada 2 kerajaan dah. You see? So ministers will come and go. There's always a change of ministers. But the most important thing is there are times when we have to make tough decision. For instance, when katalah the Vice Chancellor of University Tun Hussein is faced with a crisis. Katalah no other universities, ambil contohlah, was affected by COVID-19. Suddenly there are 10 people at University Tun Hussein Malaysia, the students are affected with COVID-19. How are you going to deal with that? So basically, people will come to you. People will want your answers. What are the things that you have not done to make sure that this scourge, that is COVID-19, has not affected your student? One. Number two, what are the move or the attempts that you are going to put in place? Yeah? What are the strategy that you're going to put in place in order to control the spread of COVID-19? Katalah at University Tun Hussein Malaysia. Yeah? Masya Allah, kita elak kalau tu, ambil just an example for instance. So these are things that you have to make to decide fast. So basically these are some of the issues. And of course, in the case of my vocation over the years, either as a journalist, either as a chief editor, either as a chairman of Dewan Bahasa, either as a chairman of Media Prima, there are times that I make wrong decisions. There are times that we make wrong decision. But the most important thing is, itu yang orang kata tu, makin tinggi kita di atas, semakin sepi sebenarnya. I'm not a poet. I don't write poetry. But because of my solitude, because of how lonely I was, masa saya masuk ke Media Prima, there are many of my friends. They are still working for Media Prima. But I'm the chairman of the company. Siapa nak duduk mengeteh dengan saya kat kantin? So you imagine, suddenly you are alone. You are there, and you are alone. Siapa nak ajak minum? Takkan saya nak panggil, jom kita mengeteh kat kantin. Kalau kat luar boleh lah, but not at Media Prima. because the structure is such that I have to maintain some semblance of kata dignity lah, you know, and my friends also, dia orang dah malu lah dengan saya, takkanlah dia orang nak pergi duduk minum dengan saya macam biasa je kan. So there is always a way that I have to circumvent the system. So I will call them and say, I want to see, I tell my PA, I want to see Cik Rusdi, Cik Awang, Cik Ali, Cik Timah. I want to discuss with them certain things at canteen. You know, so that's how things get done. But you see, the thing is, you become so lonely up there, and that is where the decision-making process becomes more difficult. And of course, there are certain decisions that has been to be made together by the board of directors, the CEO will be involved dan sebagainya. But there are certain policy issues that it is only you will have to make the decision. Contoh, one of the things that I always tell people, our failure lah, partly is because of my failure, it's because of our success. One of the things that we started was actually Tonton. Tonton ni started as a catch-up TV. You miss any of our TV program, TV3, TV7, TV8, TV9, you miss any of our TV shows, you can always go back and watch on Tonton, because Tonton, the whole idea of Tonton is catch-up TV. You miss any of the program, you can watch, except for syndicated programs lah, our own program. Jadi you boleh tengok balik. And because of that, people register the name to be part of Tonton. So at one point we have 3.4 million registered viewers for Tonton. Okay, suddenly the reality sets in. Number one, when people start watching Tonton, the cost for broadband will spike. Sebab dia gunakan broadband tu. Kita bayar dekat Telekom Malaysia. Normally kita bayar katalah 15 million, suddenly now we are paying about 20 million. Another 5 million extra, contoh lah. One. Number two, now they don't watch the program. Katalah Siri Suamiku Ustaz lah katakan. Suamiku Ustaz. Normally they will watch at the woman belt ni pukul 3 sampai pukul 2 sampai pukul 5 petang. This is the time when my wife watch television lah. So dia duduk rumah kan, dia tak kerja, jadi dia tengok television masa tu lah. Sebab itu semua television they call it the housewife belt. Jadi dia masa orang tengok. So you see they start watching there, and then they realize that tak payah tengok sini tak apalah, I can always watch the catch-up TV. And suddenly we have a problem with eyeballs. The number of people viewing or watching Suamiku Ustaz at 3 to 4 have being reduced dramatically. So the advertisers are coming to us and say, what is happening, man? Sekarang ni you punya TVR or TV rating has gone down. What happened? And then we realize that most women sekarang ni pukul 3 dengan pukul 4 dia boleh basuh baju ke, boleh betul rumah ke, boleh dia tengok malam. Anak dia dah tidur. Kan? Dia tengok malam. And for catch-up TV, there is no kata orang tu, there is no advertisement. Kan? And that has cost us for, I think, about 3 or 4 years, about 100 million ringgit. The lost revenue because of that, because of our success. 3.4 million registered viewers for Tonton. So this is one of those things lah. Of course, I take full responsibility of that. Kerana kejayaan kita, we were so successful dengan Tonton. Lepas tu kita buat Tonton Plus. Jangan kata warisan aja ada plus. Jangan kata pakatan ada plus, kita pun ada plus. We added the plus, tapi kena bayar. You tahu in the internet, if you start telling them to pay, they stop, they quit. It's as simple as that. Everything in the internet, mostly free, kata dia. Jadi, that is the problem. So, these are decisions that we have to make. At your level, you have to make the decision. And, as I told KSUs and Timbalan KSUs, the credit for the hard work that you have done, the audacity of hope that if you implemented, the things that you have done, the ideas, the brilliant ideas that you have done, the credit will go to your boss. But if something go wrong with the implementation of that beautifully crafted, beautifully planned program, you will take the blame. Yeah. Jadi senang cakap, someone have to take the fall. Contoh, baru-baru ni suddenly ada cerita kata nak apa nama ni, nak mencukai basikal. Nak macam zaman-zaman dulu, saya masih budak-budak dulu, kita naik basikal kena cukai RM2 setahun. Bawa basikal nak pergi ke sekolah saya, kan? Tak berani nak lalu depan balai polis. Simpan dekat panggung kandar, kan? Kunci, baru pergi ke sekolah. Sebab lesen tak ada, RM2 lesen. RM2 lesen. Kan? Polis kejar. Baru-baru ni, they came out with this statement, or the deputy minister came out with this statement. This deputy minister is quite capable of making a lot of strange statement lah anyway. So dia kata, dia kata akan dicukaikan basikal. And then of course the next day, the minister himself, the ministry came out a statement that has never been discussed. Come on, the deputy minister would not have done that. I'm quite sure there's some discussion or something. But because it has become not a popular decision, of course, someone have to take the blame lah. Kan? Certainly not Dato' Saifuddin. Kan? The deputy must take the blame. Something like that lah. You know? So basically, decision have to be made. And you know, we live by mistakes. We learn by mistakes. So kita semua buat kesilapan dalam hidup. Mana orang tak buat silap? Kan? Jadi semua orang ada masalah dia sendiri. You know, we all make mistakes. So but the most important thing is we have to make decision at any level of our life. So sometimes it was a good decision, someone it wasn't. Of course, sometimes when the mistake was kata orang tu monumental lah, you know? So we have to live with it lah. Sepanjang hidup saya pun, baik di mana pun saya berada, there are times that I regretted the decisions that I made, the mistakes that I've made. But I would have done it differently lah, you know. But of course we have our second chance. Second chance tu maksudnya kita perbaiki lah, and then we learn from the experience of the past, from the mistakes we make. Okay, but never be afraid to make decision. Okay, next question please.
Okay,
Ya.
Tan Sri.
Assalamualaikum, Tan Sri.
Dapat sikit,
Aminah daripada Pejabat Pengurusan
Dapat sikit
Akademik.
tak mic?
Okey, Assalamualaikum, Tan Sri. Aminah daripada Pejabat Pengurusan Akademik. Mungkin Datuk boleh share dengan kami berkaitan dengan strategi untuk pengurusan konflik dan negotiation proses lah yang mungkin boleh diambil bagi memastikan keputusan yang kita buat itu adalah satu keputusan yang menjaga keharmonian di dalam organisasi. Terima kasih, Tan Sri.
Mengekal keharmonian dalam organisasi. Well, that is a very lofty ideal. I wish we can do that, especially in a nation like ours, in a country like ours. It is almost impossible to please everyone. So we are a multiracial, multicultural, multi-religious society, kan? So it is difficult to please everyone. Even everywhere we go, even at the university, it is not easy to please everyone. So kalau katalah decision pertaining to promotion, katalah, you know, someone becomes a Professor Madya, the other person is not getting it. Of course, there'll be some commotion here and there. It happens all the time, you know. So you tak boleh naikkan pangkat semua orang. Kalau boleh kita naikkan pangkat semua orang lah. You know? So in an organisation like ours, I cannot speak on behalf of my friend Rashdi who was with CIMB for a long time. Tapi kita di Media Prima, our principle is very simple. There are at least about 65% Malays, about 25% Chinese, the rest Indian, and of course other races lah. Dan kita punya pertimbangan is never about race. It is never about if you are a Malay or non-Malay. It happened that the chairman is a Malay, the CEO or the MD is a Malay, the CFO is a Malay. It happens to be like that. But some of the head of departments are also non-Malays. Many of them are non-Malays. Jadi kita punya decision is on senang cakap performance. Yeah? So we have very senior people who are Chinese. Of course, we are answerable to our stakeholders, we are answerable to our investors, shareholders dan sebagainya. So the accountability is mine. Just because Chinese can do a better job than Malay, saya tak boleh nak nafikan kedudukan dia. But of course, at the back of our mind, we always kata orang tu, kita berikan perhatian utama lah kepada our own kind. You know, I mean, it is just natural lah. You know, tapi without being racist and without jeopardizing the value system that we have built. Yeah? Because media prima dia macam Malaysia lah. Basically because we have TV network that is in Chinese, we have radio station that is Chinese, one FM tu is totally Chinese, Mandarin. Jadi kita kena fikir tu semua. We have to take that into consideration. So we always believe that we are Malaysian. Malaysia ni dalam arti kata bahawa it is a good thing to have Malays to run the company. The top officers, 3 top tu semua Melayu. I mean, it's okay. That prove a point. And we were at that point of time, I think one of the best performing public listed companies. At one point, our turnover for 2013 was about 2.4 billion. Jadi you bayangkanlah daripada bulletin utama saja, we can get about almost like 900 million ringgit. Bulletin utama tu 1 jam je setiap hari. Orang benci ke tak benci tak kisahlah, tapi orang tengok, orang PAS tengok, orang PKR tengok, orang Bersatu tengok dan sebagainya. I mean, as far as we are concerned, one thing is to us is you pointed out correctly, without jeopardizing the harmony lah. Kita tak ada fikir tentang hal itu, cuma kita fikir tentang merit system. And I think it is quite fair to say that we represented the very values that we expect of any Malaysian company. Saya pun banyak juga terlibat dengan syarikat yang bukan sepenuhnya Bumi Putra. Orang kata syarikat bukan Bumi Putra ni kadang-kadang dia marginalize Bumi Putra. I totally have never experienced that. Saya tak tahu. Mungkin di bank pun begitu juga. Most of the banks are owned by Malays or run by Malays, and of course there are some so-called label Chinese bank, but there are more Chinese going to Maybank or CIMB than going to public bank or other banks. So basically, to me lah, from my perspective, because I guess I always believe that nak mengekalkan kehormatan tu betul lah, tapi just because of that, it is not proper to say that whoever that you believe, as long as he's a Malay, kita push him up. Pun kadang-kadang ada kesan juga pada organisation kan. As far as companies are concerned, we seldom do that. But of course, we must try to maintain the position that the decision making process at the top, itu memang kita jagalah. Because we believe that we are capable of doing. Siapa kata orang Melayu tak boleh maju, tak boleh berjaya, kan? Kadang-kadang we have been told day in day out that kita malas, kita tak pandai, kita tak cerdik dan sebagainya. Kejayaan orang Cina is not so much because of their culture. Chinese can be quite lazy. Orang Melayu pun malas, Cina lagi malas. So it is not because of the race. But I think eventually it is because of the upbringing, the psyche, the mentality. But all the while we have been told that our culture is responsible for our backwardness. I beg to differ. I don't believe in that. So I believe that there must be a possibility of giving a chance to everyone. Saya dengan Rasdi, kalau kami tidak diberikan peluang masuk ke universiti, would not have gaining access to the University of Malaya in 1970, 74. Kita tak mungkin. Because I cannot compete with people from Petaling Jaya or from Ipoh or from Kuala Lumpur at that point of time. Jadi kita punya asas kelulusan dan sebagainya untuk STPM ketika itu, Dia panggil HSC lah masa itu kan. Of course, it's slightly probably lower than those who come from the cities kan. But we were given the opportunity, peluang diberi kepada kita dengan kelulusan yang mungkin tidak perfect macam orang lain, but we were given the chance. If we have not been given the chance, we wouldn't be there. Dan mungkin tak boleh dapat. Probably Rasdi dapat 2A atau 3A compared to people who got 4As. I can't possibly get 3As. People like me can never get 4As. Because the system is different. But given a chance, we excel. We can compete with them. Kalau kita tidak dibagi peluang, orang tak masuk Universiti Melaya, orang tak masuk UiTM pada ketika ITM pada ketika itu. But given a chance, and I think, as far as we are concerned, I think we have done our level best lah. So I always believe that it is not so much the culture; it is about your personal struggle lah. Kalau kita nak berjaya, kita boleh berjaya. So I think the younger generation of Malays, I think they are able to compete with anyone, and they are good. Ada soalan lain?
Bagi Tan Sri, saya ingin bertanya lah.
Siapa?
Saya,
Oh, sorry.
it's okay. Jadi sebab I'm excited tadi mengenai there are issues yang saya yakin universiti kadang-kadang buat keputusan yang betul dan tidak betul. Antaranya COVID-19. We are among the highest among IPTA. Kita tidak announce apa-apa, cuma kita kata before anything happen kita dah cutikan pelajar. So that's what we did. Betul tak betul kita tak tahu. Kemudian there were issues during, bila ingat tak masa student UiTM makan nasi dengan kuah saja. That create uproar satu negara di mana kebajikan pelajar-pelajar universiti. Also, kita pernah juga isu audit AG dulu. Kapal terbang dalam sangkar. Sebab kata kita beli kapal terbang bukan untuk piloting, untuk terbang, tapi untuk tu. And also, nasi lemak apa yang budak kita tu? Dara, nasi lemak dara. Dan yang masak Maggi dalam baldi. So these are issues yang memang real and come to me, and we got to have instant punya thinking. So we have a methodology, tapi methodology kita ni tidak professional tadi. Perhaps you have long been into this because kita nampak once we go wrong, the impact will be very long. So kalau bagus mungkin we have a short punya increase. Tapi kalau wrong, the impact will be terribly long. So, what would be principles that we should take? Terutama ahli eksekutif lah. Sometimes I brought this immediately over WhatsApp. We have this situation. Can we make a decision over this? So, these are the things yang kita katakan we are not matured in that area of having what we call to make decision on social media punya excitements. So what are the principles that perhaps kita boleh gunalah untuk kita punya korporat ataupun strategi to advise universities on making such decision?
Thank you, Dato'. I think that is a very pertinent question. The Maggi dalam beldi is not the only issue that you have been facing. I understand that. So, but I have been following what is going on at University Tun Hussein Malaysia ni, because it is of my interest. Because I just want to know what is going on. So basically, there are two ways of doing things. One, we just totally ignore it. Isu macam ni buat tak peduli je, buat tak tahu je. Because people punya memory is only about 72 hours. Malaysians memory last only about 72 hours. Dia tengah peak tu, kan? Janganlah tambah lagi api ke minyak ke apa benda kan. Biar dia, kan? Lepas tu orang dah lupa dah. Macam kes orang si Bebeona tu, dah orang dah lupa dah. Kan? People have forgotten about Bebeona. Masa itu top. But because why was that happening? Because people add to it. There was the statement made by one deputy minister plus another deputy minister dan sebagainya. So the whole thing, and you see, the social media is something that you have to deal with, whether you like it or not. Yeah? I was following this issue regarding an influencer. This is a new thing to me. I'm not very familiar with this. Apparently, a certain product or certain services, they need an influencer. An influencer in the internet, basically these people have a lot of following, sampai berjuta-juta followers, and they are the one hawking those product or services. Yeah? And there was a case when this one of the influencer was hawking or selling ubat kurus badan or something, yeah? Ubat menguruskan badan. And of course there's many comments in the Facebook, and there was one little comment made by apparently a lady in Johor Bahru. So dia punya komen tu senang aja, boleh kurus ke? Just like that. But this influencer turn around, maki hamon kawan ni, and in the language that you can never imagine. Yeah? So I was shocked to hear what she has to say. Not only that, they put a picture of her and the family and humiliate this lady because she is not that fat lah, tapi she's quite berisi sikit lah, so dia start body shaming. There's a lot of things that have been said, so it was really shocking lah. Now, question number one, why would an influencer does a thing like that? It was an innocent question. Dalam banyak-banyak tu komen tu, saya go through lah, saya tengok. Saya tak ada Facebook account ni, tapi minta tengok orang. Dia tulis itu bukan banyak sangat. Dia kata boleh kurus ke? Itu saja. And this lady, yang influencer ni, pusing and start attacking her. It become a police case. You see, the thing about the social media is, unfortunately, we have to live with it. So macam yang saya cerita lah pasal kes yang budak Universiti Tun Hussein Malaysia di Pagoh tu makan Maggi dalam beldi tu, ya. Bukan kenapa, dia sama dia saja-saja nak bagi viral, bukan ada pressure ke apa ke kan, ya. Tapi oleh kerana benda tu dah jadi viral dan kemudian people participate in it, people start attacking, oh ini pengotor lah, itulah ini dan sebagainya, you know? So okay, one way of doing it, just keep quiet. And for 72 hours later, the whole thing will just fizzle out. No issue. But of course, there are another way of doing it. You address the issue by the horn. By you hold the bull by the horn. Senang cakap, isu yang keluar seperti itu, and then you respond immediately. But the social media mentality is that, however positive your response, they don't care. As far as they are concerned, they don't care. And some of these people, they are born just to humiliate, to condemn, to criticize others. They will not listen to reason. You bagilah reason apapun. So that is why I'm quite worried about the standard of social media in the country. Because I think we have come to a stage, number one, kita ni forward generation. Forward bukan in forward thinking, tapi apa yang kita dapat, kita forward ke orang. Without even thinking, and we don't even agree with what we forward. But the point is, we just forward. And the other thing is the response. Itu yang saddening. I have a lot of discussion among friends about the quality of bahasa Melayu. What has happened to the Malay language? Bila mencarut, maki, hamon dalam social media, guna bahasa Melayu. Kawan saya, a good friend of mine, Datuk Kadir Yassin, he was formerly the chief editor of Straits Times and became the media advisor to Tun Mahathir masa zaman Pakatan Harapan. He has his own blog, Kadir Blogspot. And a lot of people were unhappy about him because he was supporting Tun Mahathir, because he was with Pakatan Harapan. But I noticed something. I've been following his blog, his posting. One thing, whenever he writes in Malay, dia punya respon dia bukan main hebat. Dengan bahasa kasar, kesat, carut, marut, maki, hamon. Tetapi when he start writing in English, there were people who condemn him, who criticize him, vilified him. But they are all done in proper English. Tak ada carut marut, tak ada maki hamon. Itu yang saya kadang-kadang saya terfikir, apakah bahasa Melayu ni hanya jadi bahasa sampai pada level yang paling rendah digunakan untuk social media, sedangkan orang yang memaki hamon kadir dalam tulisan di bahasa Inggeris menggunakan bahasa Inggeris yang kata orang perfect, kan? They condemn, kan? What is the problem with you? You are all good. I think you don't deserve to be in the social media. That kind of thing lah. Tapi tak adalah carut marut maki hamon tu, tak ada. Itu yang saya rasa sedih bahawa bahasa Melayu kita ni sudah sampai pada level yang digunakan tidak lebih daripada sekadar tujuan untuk maki hamon. That sadden me most. Sebab saya orang bahasa, kan? Saya bukan kerana saya percaya bahawa bahasa itu kita ada label. Sedangkan bahasa Jawa pun ada label dia. Ngoko ni macam orang kampung saya lah, Ponorogo, kan? Kau marang di baru nuku apa? Dia bercakap macam tu. Tapi bila dia dah level dia ke atas, kan? Dia dah sampai kepada Kromo Madya, dia punya bahasa dia dah lain. Kulo Aceng di Timon. Kalau dia dah sampai kepada level yang paling tinggi sekali, dia dah sampai pada bahasa keraton, bahasa istana. Ada level dia. Bahasa Melayu pun begitu juga, kan? Bahasa Melayu pun begitu juga. Salahnya kerana kita orang Melayu ni bila cakap Melayu, kita assume itu bahasa kita. Sebab itu kita tak cakap betul. Orang Cina cakap bahasa Melayu proper. Macam kita cakap orang putih lah. Kita cakap orang putih teratur. Tapi bila kita cakap bahasa Melayu, tak teratur. Cakap dengan amah. Orang gaji kita daripada Desa Wates, Kabupaten Kediri, Jawa Timur. Apa kamu sudah makan? Cakap dengan anak, engkau dah makan? Kan? Dengan anak, kita tak pernah formal. Dengan orang pembantu rumah daripada Desa Wates, Kabupaten Kediri, Jawa Timur tu, apa kamu sudah makan? Tiba-tiba kita formal. Ada satu sindrom yang saya panggil tu, saya panggil ni sebagai Cengkareng Syndrome. Cengkareng ni adalah lapangan terbang antarabangsa Soekarno-Hatta di Cengkareng, di Jakarta. Turun saja kapal terbang, Indonesia pertama yang kita jumpa, Pak, saya mau ke Jakarta. Ada apa, Pak? Saja para wisata. Kita jadi orang Indonesia. Tiba-tiba kita jadi orang Indonesia. Kan? Kita tak jadi Melayu. Orang Indonesia ni, orang Jakarta dah tahu dah, ini entah Aceh mana lah ni. So, you see, apakah kerana level bahasa Melayu kita tu terlalu rendah sehingga kita sakam atau submit diri kita kepada bahasa Indonesia? Mana ada orang Melayu sampai ke Indonesia cakap, saya nak pergi ke Jakarta, boleh bawa saya ke Jakarta? Tak pernah. Pak, saya mau ke Jakarta. Jakarta di mana, Pak? Kemayoran. Oh, cakap ni bahasa Indonesia ni. Wah, bagus ya tempat ini. Kita cakap macam tu. Tak pernah kita kata bagus tempat ni. Oh, bagus sekali tempat ini, Pak. Bapak mau pergi dangdut? Maksudnya kita submit diri kita kepada bahasa orang lain. What is happening to us? Is bahasa Melayu so inferior? Saya duk cakap, orang marah kat saya. Kan? Saya kata kita ni, kan, lebih-lebih lagi dalam social media ni. But apa yang Datuk timbulkan tadi, it is very pertinent. It is so important that you have to strengthen your social media outfit. You must respond. You must respond. But there are times when if you believe it is not worth responding because it will only add fuel to fire, please don't. There is always a time that you have to decide. Macam contoh budak-budak ni, kita make it a joke lah. And I mean, to me, budak-budak sekolah kan, universiti. Kami ni dulu masa kat universiti, kami anggap diri kami ni rakan sepermegian. Maksudnya kita mampu makan Maggi je pun masa dulu kan. Scholarship kecil, kan, rakan sepermegian. Tu masa zaman-zaman itu kan. So, there must be some fun lah in the university. You address real issues, but not the cabang issues. The cabang issue ni biarlah kita jadikan dia sebagai sebahagian daripada part and parcel of the university life lah. But always remember this. Because people will not blame University Tun Hussein Malaysia for all the default. probably people will look at the University of Malaya, soal kebajikan dan sebagainya. People understand, but you are staying in Parit Raja, kan? The difference between Parit Raja and Petaling Jaya is marked, is very very pronounced, kan? Di Petaling Jaya kalau budak yang tak makan, ada cerita yang kata budak-budak makan sekali dan sebagainya. Itu was a big issue because it is in Petaling Jaya. It's unthinkable that happen in Petaling Jaya. But di sini budak tak makan, tak adalah ceritanya. Soal kebajikan dan sebagainya. I mean, as long as you take care of them, you know, you are talking about at least 10,000 ke 12,000, 15,000 students. You cannot make everyone happy. You know, they are here because they have to struggle, they have to study. They are part of the whole construct that make a university a university. So don't worry too much. You know? But as far as from my perspective, as far as the university is concerned, what you should do is strengthen your social media outfit. That is important because sometimes you have to respond immediately. And number two, when they come to certain issues about kebajikan dan sebagainya, tell them the right story. And one of the things that I always encourage, Datuk, is that bring some of these reporters to University Tun Hussein Malaysia, the campus, guide them, bawa dia kemari, buat tour, just to expose them to the university, to university life here, because very little is known about the university. Jadi make it more friendly. Jadi dia boleh datang, talk to them, sit down with them. Okay, you can ask me any question, but off the record. This is just backgrounder for you. You want to ask me anything, I can sit down with you. So what you can do is probably once a year ke apa dan sebagainya, have a guided tour, panggil reporter di sekeliling Batu Pahat, Muar dan sebagainya, or daripada Kuala Lumpur sekalipun, have tea with them, have a session with them, introduce them to the university. There's a lot of good things about this place. Orang tak kenal maka tak cinta. Orang bukan tahu sangat di mana kita pun. I mean, there is a good thing about that, and there's a negative thing about that. But the point is, I think by engaging them, it is very important because sometimes knowing them by kata orang tu, knowing them pun important juga. There are times when we are facing crisis, we need their help. So I guess that is one of the things that we have to do lah. Okay, ada lain-lain?
Saya rasa cukuplah dahulu. Kena guna fasa formal ke Tan Sri? So, terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada Tan Sri atas respon yang diberikan. Begitu juga kepada Dr. Lufan, Dr. Aminah dan yang berbahagia NC. Para hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, bagi pihak majlis kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas kesudian dan meluangkan masa sepanjang program ini berlangsung. Moga perjumpaan dan perkongsian ini dapat memberi manfaat kepada kita dan universiti tercinta. Setinggi-tinggi penghargaan juga diucapkan kepada yang berbahagia Tan Sri atas perkongsian. Sebelum kita mengakhiri majlis, mohon kerjasama untuk para peserta membacakan surah Wal-As dan tasbih kifarah untuk mengakhiri program ini. Sebelum bersurai, mohon kerjasama untuk sesi bergambar beramai-ramai.